Listen in for some positivity and good times. The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes and to the beginning of a series on the correlation between a spiritual journey and the story, which is The Wizard of Oz. Now, credit to Felicia Miller-Johnson. She is an intuitive and a life coach. She challenged me and didn't realize how much of a deep meaning there was in The Wizard of Oz. We kind of take it for what it's worth. I mean, some of you might have picked up a little bit more on this earlier than I did, but I've taken some aspects and observations from other people, but also adding my own, some things that I noticed and took from it. I'm hoping to empower you as well as to better myself. And you'll have to forgive me. I'm having to read my notes because there's a lot of information, a lot of things I had to write down. And also they're working on the road outside. So probably going to hear some big trucks coming through. But let's kick this off. I want to start by saying, number one, Dorothy is a representation of the self. And one of the central characters, and surprisingly enough, Toto is a representation of God. And without Toto, you have no story. The spiritual journey of The Wizard of Oz has to deal with non-duality and salvation. Now, non-duality is defined as a philosophy which says there is just one eternal spirit in existence, and everything in the universe is an inseparable part of it. Also, that the world is an illusion. It's only perceived through the mind and through senses. But it's not there. Sounds weird, but it's an expansion of consciousness, and it's having to do with living in the present, which a lot of us really have a hard time with. We're either living in the past or we're just looking towards the future, never in the moment. Kind of like in Star Wars and the Jedi, hey, be in the moment, be aware of your surroundings. Also, there is an importance to meditation. It's kind of one of my own observations here, but it's self-awareness and reaching a higher vibration through positive affirmations and positivity goes along with the salvation. Dorothy represents consciousness on the run, and she is running from judgment. The judgment is from the claim that her dog bit a woman, and the woman wants to take custody of this dog and to have it destroyed. Now we're going to explore this concept, which is number one, Toto represents God. Blasphemy is just, it is a symbol, or he is a symbol. Toto meaning total or the whole. Number two, God and his commandments. Now, God and his commandments force people to confront their sins and, of course, to feel guilty. Most people never want to admit they're doing anything wrong. The things that make them feel good, they don't want people to take that away from them, whether it's, the sins of, say, sex or drugs, alcohol, these kinds of things. And God puts a damper on a lot of this stuff. That's why a lot of people they don't like people coming to their door and trying to tell them about God or invite them to church. They don't want to go to church. They don't want to hear these things. Let me give you why Toto represents God in this aspect. Toto chases the lady's cat and digs around in her garden and bit her. What this shows, or what it's trying to say here, is just like Toto was doing all those things, this is a way of saying that God he's kind of digging around in your garden. He's chasing those cats. What do you mean? When God is in your life, he is in your consciousness or in your conscience. He's there. He's on your shoulder. He's telling you this is what you're doing wrong. So he's into every part of your life. That's why people don't want to go to church and don't want people talking to them about God. That that judgment on you, that does seem to take a bite on you. That makes sense. Of course, the book and the movie represents a dream. The characters represent different aspects of the ego or the self. And Dorothy is in judgment of herself throughout the story, which is not allowing her any peace. She doesn't have a lot of self-confidence. And the witch, believe it or not, is actually a representation of the evil within herself. And the judgment also represents her loyalty to Toto. What do you mean by that? Well, just like with God, if you really love God, and people say all kinds of things, God doesn't exist, just awful things, you're always kind of in defense of him as well, if you truly, truly love God. Looking at Toto, which he is imperfect, not considerably a good looking dog, but is a symbol of perfection in the sense of a divine being. But at the same time, on this plane, the creations of God are not perfect. Just like Jesus, part of him is perfection. The God part of him is perfection. But Jesus had to, he was part man. So that's the only way that you could look upon God is, if you were to actually look at God, you would die because of how perfect he is. So in order for him to come down and to bring us salvation in the form of Jesus, he's part God, part man. Toto in this world and in Oz never changes and is the same through the whole story. Toto is always at Dorothy's side, and he's always there for her. She loves him unconditionally. And even when others seek to destroy him, she was always loyal to him. Even when she looks to her aunt and uncle, who, they don't have the same loyalty, but they love him when, as far as it just as a family in their little space, they love Toto, but they don't defend him when this other person, comes in accusing. You kind of see the similarities here. Toto is very much an intuitive, and he's a guide, and he always knows the right way to go. He is an absolute for Dorothy, and while she is being tested through her self-realization, Toto is always there, always part of the story. You'll find a lot of the characters and the situations they get into, they're all part of the inner struggle and the ego. If you take the lessons that are represented, you can empower yourself. You can get to that next level to get to that higher vibration. Now, I could spend a lot of time just talking about Toto alone, but we're going to get into Dorothy and to all the other characters. Not spend too much time on it, but I want you to get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you. And we'll try to go over everything in my last video, and we'll try to come up with some conclusions of our own. If you have any comments, please let me know. If you would like to come on and kind of give your thoughts on the movie, please, I welcome you to. But until the next one, look at this in a whole different way. Take care and be kind to one another, and God bless. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network